Hello, everybody. This is Wisdom Hunter with another Twitch stream for Barbaric Fantasy. How you doing? I see a couple of people here. So we're just getting started with this project. We've only been going on in this project for a couple of days now. Just started this week. So, getting started for Barbaric Fantasy. Yesterday we did a stream about what Barbaric Fantasy is. What can you expect in that type of game and that type of world? So this is a barbaric world. If you look at, let me give you an example of what a barbaric world is kind of like. You look at heavy armor. Heavy armor didn't start to exist until about 1300 in Western Europe. And for 2,000, 3,000 years before that, the only armor that existed was chainmail, making metal into little rings and putting it over the body in certain places. Just chainmail existed for 2,000 years. This barbaric type of fantasy existed before medieval times. So heavy armor didn't exist. That plate armor didn't exist in barbaric fantasy times. So you don't use heavy armor in this type of world. So now we want to create a character in this world, and we know the world's different because it's a barbaric fantasy world. We know the world's different. It doesn't use heavy armor. It's not medieval Europe where you have that type of genre. It's not high fantasy like you get in DnD 5e. Where you have this incredible magic. It goes back to another time when the world was raw with vast wilderness and civilizations were just sprawling little city-states trying to connect together that really didn't have borders. They were just sort of territories that people would call themselves, yeah, I'm from that area of the world. But the city-states and the civilizations were not well developed. Later on, as you start moving towards, the Egyptian and the Greek cultures, that's still barbaric, but different. So it's not like this heavy plate armor that they started to use in Europe because the archers just sling their arrows into an onslaught of people. Say there was an army coming at you, the English would just take a lot of archers, and the archers could do like 18 arrows a minute and just sling tons of arrows and just wipe out the enemy before the enemy even got close. So they learned how to do plate armor with steel. There was a certain type of process to produce that metal. That technology didn't exist in those earlier days. Okay. So you want to create characters in this different type of world of barbaric fantasy. Less magic, a different type of armor system, a different type of weapon system. You have the classes in D&D 5e are not the same. In D&D 5e now, it's like every class can cast magic. The wild magic for barbarians. The paladins are casting all kinds of magic. The rangers have spells. So even there's like arcane trickster, even the thieves have magic. But back in those barbaric fantasy days, those characters didn't have that. So we're going to take character creation from D&D 5e and modify it so that we can create characters in this barbaric fantasy world. We're going to be using an Excel spreadsheet. And then we're going to be taking information from that Excel spreadsheet and putting it right into Roll20, right into the character sheets of Roll20, and have characters ready to go. It's not a complicated process. It's actually very easy. But I just want to take you through it so you can see how it's done. Or this is how I do it. Because you can't create normal characters in D&D 5e. And have them function properly in these barbaric worlds. D&D 5e and those classes and their subclasses, those are designed for high fantasy stories. medieval high fantasy stories. But that type of world didn't exist way back in those barbaric days when civilizations were just starting to get going. They didn't have the technology for plate armor, and they didn't have these wild magic fantasies. Magic at that point in time was more mind-based, belief-based, spiritual-based, and people were prone to magic. Other people were resistant to it depending on their culture. There's all kinds of things to go about that, but magic was more limited back then as far as people using it, as far as people experiencing it. It still existed. Illusion still existed. Mind control still existed. But, so there's going to be some magic in the barbaric fantasy world. All right, let's go ahead and get into character creation. I'm going to take you right now to the Excel spreadsheet. This is where it starts off. So we're going to be going in here and creating a character. So up here at the top, we would have the character's name. And then their homeland. Where are they from in that world? And then from there on, we're going to be creating everything that you would be familiar with. Ability scores, strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, just like in D&D 5e. There's going to be proficiency, expertise, initiative. We're going to throw in some luck rolls. Luck rolls, I'll get into that later. There's going to be hit points. There's going to be skills and training. From acrobatics. You'll see a few in there that you don't recognize. Because I throw in a few of those because I'll get into that later, but there's skills. You'll see skills and they're used just like any other skills. Then you'll have your attacks. And over here, you can choose your weapon. So you want a spear. Click on a spear, and you automatically get your attack and your damage. You come down here, no armor, and so you wanted some armor, throw in some leather. So this is very user-friendly, this character sheet for creating. And you got your possessions. Down here in possessions, if you want a candle, just put in one candle, now you have a candle. And you come down here, you got some spell information for the spellcasters. You have information here on if you have a disease or a poison or a madness. I'm just giving you a general overview of the character sheet. You'll have exhaustion levels, death saves, shadow points. And down here, you can look up packs. This is just to look up packs. There's a whole list of packs. Let's say you wanted a fishing tackle. This includes a wooden rod, silken line, corkwood bobbers, still hooks, stone sinkers, velvet lures, and narrow netting. If you wanted one of those, you just come over here and you put that fishing tackle right into your kit. Now it's in your kit, and the weight of that kit has been added into your possessions. And over here, you can just look at whatever you want. Let's say you want an herbalism kit. It'll tell you exactly what's in there. And these kits don't overlap their items. So if you wanted a crowbar, you'd have to go to a thieves. Where is that? Thieves tools, right? Is there a crowbar in there? Where is the crowbar? Miners? Dungeoneers pack? Where is that crowbar? You'd have to look around for it. Climber's pack? I can't really find the crowbar right now. It's in there somewhere. And then you come down to the character description, where you're talking about personality traits, your bonds, how did you become an adventurer, so your backstory, personal philosophies, ambitions, goals, flaws, secrets, superstitions. And then you get into your homeland traits. All this information here that you see about homeland, archetype, caste, these come from the Conan books. which are really great for developing character backstories in the barbaric fantasy world. And later on, we'll take an interesting one of the characters in those books and develop some backstory. And then down here, you'll have spells. And just click on here, and you have a list of spells that you can choose from. Fusing Flesh is a healing type spell. Let's see, you wanted Feywalker's Drifting. Whatever you need, you just pick your spell, and it will show up on the sheet. Okay, so that's an overview. So it goes from everything from the ability scores down to the spells. Okay, let's begin here by just selecting a class. And just to keep it simple, we'll pick a fighter. We pick a fighter. The hit die is 11. Usually it's 10, but I buff these up a little bit. I buff up the hit die in this barbaric fantasy so that the characters have a little bit more hit points. And so this Excel sheet allows you to customize exactly what you need for different types of genres. So I've got it set up right now for barbaric fantasy. And the classes get a little bump up. Like the wizards don't have 6 hit die, they have 8. So they get more hit points. And we'll pick a level 3 character. So there we have it. We just got a fighter and a level 3 at level 3. Fighter at level 3. And you'll begin to see that these cells all have formulas in them that you'll see up there. So let's move on here. And we have a fighter. Now, down here, where you see ability points, you see the abilities: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and right below charisma is called ability points. You're going to see a number adding up there because we're going to be buying ability scores and feats at level 3. So let's just start out by taking strength up to 6. It's a fighter, right? Taking constitution up to 14. Well, we'll go up to 13 so that you can see as I change the constitution score, watch down here where it says max hit points. Sort of to the right of the line where it says hit points, max, right now 42. If I go down to constitution 12, now it's 39 hit points. If I go down to constitution 11, now it's 37 hit points. Go down to constitution 10, now it's 34. So for each increase in an ability score, you get an effect. Usually in D&D 5e, from 10 or 11, everything's the same. As soon as you get to 12, then you get the benefits. You go up to 13, no increase in benefits, it's the same as 12. 12 and 13 are the same. Then you get to 14 and 15, the same. But in this, every step from 10 to 11 to 12 to 13 to 14 to 15, every ability score increase gives you something. More hit points or something else. It just depends on the ability score. So you'll come through and pick 13, and you'll see now that the ability points have gone up to 12 down here. And let's say the fighter has a low charisma. We're going to boost up the wisdom a little bit. Need some perception, some stealth. And let's say the dexterity comes up to 12. So now we're up to 14 ability points. We'll take the intelligence down to 9. Now we have 13 ability points that are accumulating. You'll see down here, right below the ability scores. Now, what are we hoping for there? We have a certain number of points. At level 3, you have 22 points to spend. So there's still 9 points to put in there. What are we going to do with those extra 9 points? We're going to buy feats. So let me show you. that in this game, there is this is the document of feats, and it's like 22 pages. Come back to here so you can see. Now, in here, there's going to be core feats, lineage feats, custom feats. And custom feats are all the feats that you would normally recognize, like great weapon master or sharpshooter. Those are those feats in there. So, come down, and each feat that you see in here has points. So, for example, if you wanted a saving throw proficiency, if you wanted an extra saving throw proficiency on your character sheet, it would cost you 2 points. See that right there? Right in the middle of the screen? And let's come down. The lineage feats talk about sort of the racial traits of the characters. Some dark vision, being able to swim, clawed hands, sharp teeth, bestial kind of things. And so you could spend some of your points on that. And then you come down to the custom feats. Adrenaline Rush, Street Fighter. These would all cost 2 points. Sentinel. So you grab some feats that you think would be really cool for your character. And you buy those and say, I want these extra special abilities for my character. Whip Mastery. This one's kind of cool. 2 points. Okay, we'll throw Whip Mastery onto the sheet. Fury for 1 point. Sure. Whip Mastery for 2. Fury for 1. Now I'll take you back to the Excel sheet. Let me go back here for a second. I'll show you another one that I'm going to throw in there. So, 25 feet of movement is the base movement. If you want extra movement, you have to buy it. So if you want 5 extra feet of movement, it'll cost you 1 point. If you want 10 feet of extra movement, you get to 35 feet, it'll cost you 2 points. So we're going to throw in extra 10 feet of movement, Whip Mastery, and Fury for 1, okay? Okay. So I'm going to show you where I put these. I'm going to come back to the sheet, for the character sheet. Sorry, this does get a little, juggling. This is the first time I've put this together, so I'm having to juggle back and forth between documents here. So you go down the Excel sheet to where it comes to custom feats and these core and lineage feats. So this is automatically going to say that at 3rd level you get 3 custom feats that you could get, or 4 core lineage feats. So this Excel sheet actually tells you how many feats you can actually choose at that level. So in here we're going to put in Whip Mastery. You can see that for 2. And we'll say Fury. Let's come back over here. Fury. That was for 1. And we had a core lineage feat of 10 extra feet of speed, which was going to cost 2 points. Okay, so you pick your feats, you throw them in there. Now these numbers, for 2 points for the Whip Mastery, 1 point for the Fury, 2 points for the extra speed, those will all get added back up into these ability scores. So we've gone from 13 up to 18 ability points. You see over here, below the ability scores, below charisma right there, you'll see ability points. Now it's 18, because those feats that we just bought have been added in there. So now let's keep adding in some numbers until we get to 22. As soon as we hit 22, that little square for ability points now turns green, which means we've used all of our 22 points, and we've bought ability scores and feats. So now we're developing our character. We've given our character certain ability scores and certain feats that describe the capabilities of our character. And we'll move on here, and everything else is going to be calculated automatically. So these hit points are 42. Reserve hit points are going to be 21. And reserve hit points is basically that during a short rest, you can use up those reserve hit points to replenish hit points. So it's just like hit dice, but it's just using reserve hit points. Okay, so moving on down, we'll see skills and training. And this number up here, just to the right of skills and training, that number right there will turn green when you've hit the correct number of skills and training. So if we just want to say, okay, athletics, acrobatics, let's do some endurance. Of course, we got to get some stealth in there. And why not some perception? But then we'll throw in a couple of knowledge skills, maybe trade, maybe medicine, why not? And it still hasn't turned green, so let's throw in intimidation, fighter, maybe it wants to intimidate. So with the number 8, we now have enough, we have the number of skills and training, skills for this fighter. So we've selected our 8. The Excel sheet now tells us that's all you can select. Okay, we stop right there. And then we come on down, we'll see the AC so far is 12. And base attack is 1. And this EADC right here is going to be, the EADC is going to be the DC for your extra attack. So you get 1 base attack. And if you want to get another extra attack at 3rd level, you can do it. But you've got to roll a D12 to beat that 8. And if your D12 beats that DC of 8, you can get an extra attack. And you've got a spear. Let's bring in this. Oh yeah, we want daggers, quarterstaff. But let's say we don't want a spear. This is a fighter. Let's say we want this fighter to have a longsword. Okay, now we have the longsword in there. +4 to attack. Damage 1d8 +3. So everything is calculated automatically. So you just choose your weapon, and as soon as you choose your weapon from this drop-down list, the system knows whether you're going to be proficient in that. This little X next to the P says you're proficient in that. The little 8 next to that D shows the damage die for that. It's the 1d8. M&R, that simply means if it's a melee or a ranged weapon. And this Excel sheet also knows if it's a finesse or a light weapon in order for you to be able to do either choose dexterity or strength for your attacks. So this Excel spreadsheet knows if your weapon can be using dexterity or strength for its attacks. So all you have to do is just pick your weapon, and everything from there is automatic. And then down here, we'll see that this fighter has a P next to the AC. So the fighter is proficient in weapons, armor, and shields. So if we wanted a shield here, we would add 2. Let's say we come up here, and now the AC is 14. So the AC has gone from 12 to 14 because we added a shield. But let's say we didn't want a shield. Let's say we just wanted some armor. Come down here and pick your armor. Now we're not using any heavy armor. Ring mail? Yes. Chainmail, heavy armor for chainmail? Yes, you could do that. Plate armor, which is normally in D&D 5e? No. Scale mail? We'll just say scale mail right now. And then, so that takes the AC base up to 14, adds on, so the AC right now is at 16. Okay, so we're moving on. We don't have anything to add in this ammunition and food magic items yet. And you could add your features. Over here, you could add your subclass. If you have superiority dice and other things for your fighter, you could be adding it here into the features and other enhancements. And then we come down here with physical abilities, human, enter base speed, 35, because remember, we bought that. We come down here, where'd it go, up here. We bought 10 extra feet of speed, so we'll change that base speed up to 35. And once you change 35, the hour speed and the day speed and the swim speed all change. Here, let me change that back to 25. You'll see the hour speed go back to 3. Change that back up to 35. Now you can actually travel 4 miles every hour. If your speed is only 25 feet, then you only travel 3 miles every hour. That's all figured automatically. And a couple of extra bells and whistles in here that if you buy some feats that actually increase hit points or spells or your melee attacks or your melee damage or your ranged attacks or your ranged damage, you can just throw a number in here like 2. And now all of your melee attacks will be increased by 2. And initiative, if you take like the alert feat, and your initiative score goes up by 5, just put a 5 in there because you took the alert feat. We'll come up here, and we'll see now that the initiative is +6. You can see here, before it was just a +1 because the modifier on the dexterity is +1, but now it's +6 because down here you've added +5 to the initiative. See down here? And if we take that away, now you don't have the alert feat anymore. Pick your possessions. If you have spells, you get all your spell information here. This all figured automatically, calculated all automatically, very quick and easy. It usually just takes a couple of, like 2 minutes to fill out, pick your class, pick your skills, set your ability scores, pick your weapons, shield or armor, a couple of feats, and then by this time you're just picking possessions. So once you get used to a sheet like this, it only takes a couple of minutes to create a character. It's super fast. And then you come down here to the character description. And if you choose spells, you choose your spells. So now once you have all this information that is developed by this particular spreadsheet to create characters for Barbaric Fantasy, what do you do with these numbers? I'm going to show you where to put them. I'm going to show you where to put them in Roll20. Let's go there now. Let's see. Roll20, where are you? Right there. So this is the character sheet that I particularly like in Roll20. It's the shaped character sheet for 5e, D&D. You'll see D&D, 5e, and then in parentheses, shaped sheet. And this is one I really like because when you make an attack, it'll ask you who the target is. And when you click on the target, then it matches the attack to the AC, and you know exactly right away if the attack hit. And it also gives you a little button right there for doing damage. In future workshops, I'm going to show you how to run this particular character sheet in combat, in different scenarios, so you know where to click and where to do it, because it's super fun and it makes everything super easy. Okay. Let's get back over here. Okay. So, So here you'll see, this is the sheet. This is the sheet just as you'll see it in Roll20. You'll have a name, class, you'll have background, everything. It'll come down to your ability scores over on the left. All you have to do is just transfer the ability scores right over from your Excel sheet right into here. Super easy. And the inspiration, which is the luck points. In a normal D&D 5e character sheet in Roll20, you can't, inspiration always just gives you one inspiration. But in the shape sheet, you can set it to either just one inspiration like normal D&D rules, or you can create as many inspiration points as you want. In my game, I allow a limit of 7 inspiration points, which I call luck points. And each one of those luck points allows a character to add a point onto a roll. So if you roll a 12 and the AC of the enemy is 13, use up one of your luck points to make that attack. And there's different ways that you can get luck points back. I'll go about that in another time, but that's just to say this shape sheet allows you to do multiple inspiration points. And then you have your strength, dexterity scores all figured automatically. And then you'll have the all the skills straight from the Excel sheet right there. And you choose your weapons. And here in Roll20, all you have to do is go over to the journal or the library tab, click on that, and just drag your weapons right in. If you want a longsword, you just click on it, drag it right onto your sheet, goes right in, and all the numbers are perfectly balanced right there, just like on the Excel sheet. On the Excel sheet, all of those numbers are calculated automatically. In Roll20, all you do is move that weapon right into the sheet. It automatically just falls into it, and the numbers come out perfectly, just like you would find in the Excel sheet, but here it's automatically. So you don't have to move those numbers over from the Excel sheet to the Roll20 sheet. And over here on the right, you'll see what's called modifiers. And this is really cool in the shaped sheet. You don't get this on the regular D&D 5e character sheet that you would get in Roll20. You don't really have this ability, but this shaped sheet does something really cool. That I've added all these extra things in there that when you click on it, like you'll see exhaustion 1, exhaustion 2, exhaustion 3, exhaustion 4. For every level of exhaustion you have, you click that box. And then every time you click a box, it automatically changes any roll you do. So let's come over here and I'll show you. If you can watch on the left with the skills, you'll see over there on the left the skills are all at +0. I'm going to say 1 level of exhaustion. Now I'll just wait a little bit as the computer there at Roll20 is figuring out that exhaustion's just been clicked. We're just waiting. Now, see, they all just switched to -1. So with a with 1 exhaustion level, all of your skills are now done at a -1 roll. And we go to exhaustion 2. And that's basically just going to affect the AC and the attack bonuses. So now we'll come back and do exhaustion 2 to exhaustion 3. Now this character has 3 levels of exhaustion. And we're going to see the skills, those modifiers for the skills, automatically go down to -2. You just have to wait a second. There. Now all of the skills are being rolled at -2. So whatever condition you have, if you're blinded, incapacitated, invisible, hindered, scared, frightened, staggered, stunned, paralyzed, grappled, restrained, or if you're grappling, or if you're restraining, or prone or unconscious, whatever condition you have, you click on one of those, and it automatically modifies any roll that needs to be modified from that condition. So it's super cool. And then up here, we can have like Hunter's Mark. If you're a ranger and you have Hunter's Mark, click on Hunter's Mark right there, and then when you do your attack, it'll automatically add in your Hunter's Mark. And then Rage too. If you're a barbarian and you're raging, just click on Rage, and now every roll you make that's being modified by your Rage is automatically modified. You don't have to sit there and try and recalculate it. It's automatic. And their danger sense and their reckless attack. I have one called a full force melee attack. This is something that I added to my homebrew, that any character, if they just want to put all of their force and strength into an attack, they will get 1 level of exhaustion for doing this attack. But if they make the attack, they will get crit damage. So the attack comes down by -2, but if it still hits, they get crit damage to do just an unbelievable attack, and then they get 1 point of exhaustion. So it's this all-out effort to try and doing your enemy in 1 blow. So if that's what you want to do, you click on it, make the attack, and see what happens. And great weapon master, sneak attack, fast reflexes, dodge action. So anything that you want to do can be added in here, and you'll automatically have those modifiers to your throws. Now, there's a lot of things I'm kind of skipping over here, so I just wanted to show you how easy it is to take those numbers from the Excel sheet. Basically, you put in your ability scores from strength down to charisma, super fast. Put in your inspiration points, super fast. Click on your saving throws, super fast. Click on your skills, super fast. Drag over your weapons, super fast, well, a minute or two. Just dragging them over. And then from there, you're basically done. And actually, when you click on your class, up here, the features of that class will automatically be added in to a little section down here called feats. So you don't even have to add in those either. Those automatically get added in. And just wrap up here to say, okay, now you've got the stats. The stats is super easy. In the Excel, it happens super fast. You just move those numbers over here to the shape sheet super fast. Now we're going to talk about backstory and how you figure out backstory. Let's go ahead and come back here. And I'm going to show you how to take you. I'm going to show you where to go for this backstory. If I can get the right thing to come up. No, that's not the right one. This is the one. Okay, so this is character creation in Barbaric Fantasy, but it's going to be using these Conan books from Modiphius, because those books understand the barbaric world. And it's incredible how perfectly they've done this to create backstories. And so in Barbaric Fantasy, you really have to integrate different resources. You got these mechanics from D&D 5e. And now you're going to get these resources from the Conan system, integrate them together to actually be able to create a really interesting character. We've already got a fighter going here. But now we're going to want to give that fighter a backstory, a story. Okay. So, you'll see here that you're going to choose a class and a level and a homeland. Now, we've already chosen the class, so we've already chosen a level. It's a fighter at level 3. Let me get back over here where I can see where I am. There we go. There. And then you come down here, and there's homelands. So, in the Barbaric Fantasy world I have, everybody's going to create their own barbaric world, right? Some can have a completely different world with completely different names. I use the one from Conan. So it's the same map, the same world from the Conan stories. And there's 20 homelands. You'll see down here from Aquilonia, Bossanian, Marches, Kishan. It'll come all the way down to Kitai. Kitai is like China. And right before that is Vendia, which is like India. So you can roll dice or just choose what part of the world you want to come from. And that'll give you a climate and a culture and a way to live. And you go to these Conan books, and for my players in Roll20, when they get into the Roll20 game that they're going to play with me, I have links to all of these books. There's going to be like 12 or 15 books in digital format that you can just download to your computer and be able to work your character creation. That's a big benefit to my players, is they get access to all of these digital books, and they are phenomenal. And so as you come down here, after you pick your homeland, you're going to choose an archetype and a caste. And these come from these Conan books. These come from these backstories. So you're either going to get these from the main core rulebook, or you're going to go to what's called these Conan D books. So we'll see here, it starts out that in blue, you're going to see these archetypes. These are like the classes in the Conan stories and the Conan system. And you can choose these archetypes along with your class from D&D 5e. So if you're a fighter, but you also want to be an archer or a barbarian or a mercenary or a noble warrior, you can blend that archetype into your fighter to round out their backstory and their personality and who they are. Maybe you want a fighter who's a nomad. I'm just going down this list right now from the main core rulebook in Conan. And then you're going to add a caste. Where's that position? Where's that character's position in society? Crafter, escaped serf, farmer, herder, merchant, outcast, petty nobility, priest, warrior. So there's these different positions that they take in society, and that's in the orange. And so you go into those Conan books, and each one of those castes has descriptions that you can choose from to further develop your backstory. It's not just that the crafter has a particular description and that's it. The crafter will have a description, and then these caste talents that you can choose from, and these stories that can further develop what kind of crafter you have. And that's the beauty of these Conan books, is they go into all kinds of people that are existing in this barbaric world, and really helps form their backstories for a barbaric fantasy. And that's the real key here, is you really get a sense of where these people were living and how they were living and how they were able to develop their lives within these cultures and their homelands. So this is a fantastic part of these Conan books to develop your backstory so that you really know where you're going from as a character. And so there's Conan the Barbarians. There's a book called Conan the Barbarian. And that whole book will talk about people that have come from the lands of the north. So you have the bard, the hunter, the raider, and the slaver as the archetypes. And then you have the caste of the barbaric, law speaker, renegade, skald. And there's descriptions of those types of characters. This is barbaric fantasy. This is people in this barbarian world. But they have names, they have descriptions, they live. You can bring this into your characters and give them a life. And the one I wanted to do is come down to this book called, let me see if I can find it. See the one there in the center of the screen now called Conan the Thief? This talks about the areas of Zamora, Bithynia, and Corinthia, which are like in the center of the world. And let's say you wanted to be a fighter, but you wanted to come from that archetype of a highwayman. Now, what's a highwayman? Well, you would go to this book, Conan the Thief, and look it up. Let's see if I have it ready to go here. I'll take you into that book so you can actually see what it looks like. Nope, I don't have it up here, so give me a second to bring up the book. There it is. Give me the view on it. So I'm just giving you a sense that what we're looking at here is what we're looking at here is how to create characters for Barbaric Fantasy. D&D 5e creates characters for high fantasy. But now we want to create characters to fit in this old-style Barbaric Fantasy world. So let's come over here and let me see if this is going to come up right. Oh, perfect. Oh, I love it. Okay. I'm just kind of learning how to switch back and forth between different documents here. So this is the book, Robert E. Howard's Conan. This is made by Modifius. My players actually get access to these books when they get into the Roll20 game. So this book is called Conan the Thief. So as you go through this book, you learn all about the characters. You'll come over here, chapter 1, their homelands, their castes and their stories, their archetypes, their educations, their war stories, talents, names. So you get all this information about different types of people that live in these areas that are related to this area of the world that you would relate to thieves. There's a lot of thieves that live in Zamora. But then all these different types of people live there, and as you go through chapter 1, they're describing all different types of characters and their backstories. So I'm going to take you to the archetype, just so you can kind of get a sense. You get your thief, homeland, caste. So let's say you wanted to be an outlaw. This was your caste. It gives you some of these events that kind of shaped you. You could be either a nobility in all but name, or maybe honor is the key, or you're a victim of justice. There's different types of outlaw stories that you can choose from to kind of, well, not to kind of, but to actually help you really define what your backstory is as an outlaw. And then archetypes. And this is the assassin. And we're going to come to the highwayman. Coming in. Here's the highwayman right here. Let's see if you can see that. Making sure you can see that on the screen. Yes. I think I have to go like this and you'll see it better. Wait and see here. See if that helps you see it better. Yeah, now it's right in the center. Okay. So you've chosen a fighter. That's your class in D&D. Fighter's basically, okay, you fight. That's what D&D says. You fight. Here's your weapons. Here's your armor. Now describe your character. But now you come into these Conan books and you can say, okay, now you're a highwayman. You're a fighter, but now you're a highwayman. And you've got these skills gained in the mall are likened to wielding a rapier, right? Then the highwayman's technique is a blunt instrument. So a highwayman is someone who raids caravans as they're traveling on a road somewhere. So they're going to have a little higher persuasion. As you read through this, they use charm and intimidation and the threat of violence to accomplish their goals, which is to steal from these caravans. A lot of times they don't want to kill them. They just want to talk with them and threaten them and intimidate them and say, give us what you have and on your way. So the highwayman has charm and intimidation. So if you're a fighter and you want to be a highwayman, you've got to bump up your charisma score a little bit. And in your intimidation, you want to take that intimidation skill and persuasion skill. You want to take intimidation and persuasion, maybe even a little deception, but it depends on how you want to develop that charisma part of your character. But the highwayman now tells you where you are in society, what you're doing, what type of personality you have. You can kind of read right there, I think, on the screen, how this information can help you define the story of your fighter. D&D doesn't do a great job sometimes with backstories, and especially when it comes to Barbaric Fantasy. These Conan books are fascinating, just fascinating in the way they're able to describe in different ways in a constructive way so that you can make a better character for your stories. And that's the key. So it's integrating the 5e D&D mechanics, skills, ability scores, integrating these backstories from the Conan books to give you a real sense of who's living in these barbaric fantasy worlds. And once you start going through and picking out this information, you're going to start developing a really, really interesting character. A relic hunter, right? How interesting would it be to actually be a relic hunter, where you're a fighter? You could be a fighter, but you actually are focused on hunting for relics. You can create a character like that. Makes it really interesting. Spy. You could even be a fighter spy. And there's educations. How are you educated? And it comes down your war story. What's your war story? And let's see. Here are some talents. Talents are things that you can choose upon to help you guide how you choose your skills, how you choose your proficiencies and tools, kits, things like that. Thieves' kits. What types of things would you work with? And these Conan books are great for giving you a sense of all these other types of things you can put on your character sheet for possessions. Grease pots, tripwires, marbles. There's all these different little tricks and things that you can put into your character sheet and say, my character knows how to use these things because it's part of their backstory. And so you can use those as tools, as tricks in your gameplay. And you can have hidden weapons. It gives you a whole other batch here of hidden weapons. We would take one of these weapons and convert it into like a D&D 5e system, or whatever system you're using. You take one of these weapons and move it on in. Poisons, if you want to be a thief or a fighter that's coming from Zamora and you're used to dealing with poisons because that's how you do your business, well, there's a couple of poisons right there that you can choose from. So you get an idea here that, there's different swords and daggers, flexible weapons. And so you get an idea here of all the different types of backstory that you can incorporate into these characters to actually make a real living character that would live in a barbaric fantasy world. You're not going to get that through the D&D 5e books on really how to make a low fantasy barbaric thief, paladin, general, highwayman, merchant, herdsman, a Kozak raider through the deserts. You're not going to get that flavor, that depth of backstory for barbaric fantasy through the D&D books. You're just not going to get it. It's not there. So you come into these Conan books, and it's all right there. They've really developed extremely nicely how to tune in and understand who these people were and what they did. What was their knowledge? What was their experience? So, I'm going to kind of give you a summary of what we talked about today, wherever you are, whatever time it is where you are. Let's see here. Where did that go? Okay, we started out right here, where you just go in to the Excel sheet, quickly fill out your ability scores until those squares turn green. Fill in your skills and training until that one square turns green. and your hit points will be figured automatically. The way I do hit points is I just add on the Constitution score. From level 1 on up, you just add in the Constitution score. So you can see in this case, the Constitution score is 13. So every hit point maximum in this Barbaric Fantasy game that I play, every hit point maximum is going to be 13 points more than what you would find in D&D 5e. Because I want these characters to be strong. I want these characters to withstand a lot of punishment. So I give them extra hit points and give them that space to fight on a real battle. And to be able to give them the time to fight, find out if they're in a no-win situation, and get out of there. I don't want them to find out too late that in one hit, they go down and they're dead. I want to give them enough space, enough hit points from the beginning, so they can feel a fight off from the beginning and know if they should get out of there or continue. And they need enough hit points to do that. So I give them the Constitution score right off from the beginning. These are just little tweaks. These are just little tweaks to the D&D 5e system. You just make a list of skills, pick the skills that you need, you got your hit points, pick your weapons, then you pick your armor, pick a shield if you want a shield or not. You're done on the first page. It's that fast. And then pick some of the feats that you want. If you want some ranged weapon feats or some melee feats, or you want to do extra damage, or you want some mobility feats, there's all kinds of feats that you can choose from. Throw them in there. And then that increases the ability of your character to do all kinds of wonderful things. There's if you're going to be an assassin, there's a surprise attack feat, which is kind of cool. So if you're going to be an assassin, there's certain feats that would be perfect for you. If you wanted to be a leader of your group, there's certain feats that would be perfect for you to give you that extra power for those things. And then you come down, you're picking your speed, picking your talents, tools, kits, music, vehicles, whatever you have proficiency with. If you have any vulnerabilities or resistances, write them in there. Pick your possessions. And come all the way down. Write in your backstory. And if you're a spellcaster, you pick your spells. It's really fast. And then once you have the Excel sheet filled out like this, it's just so easy to transfer them over into Roll20. Let's see if I can get that pulled up here. Here's the sheet at Roll20. And it's just so easy just to bring those right over, write them in, change up the sheet here. Sheet's ready to go. You got your weapons, you have your ability scores, all your skill checks, and any condition you might have or any special features that need to modify your rolls. Just click on them. Super fast and easy. So, I don't see any comments in chat. I think you're just kind of all taking this in. Let's see. Where's that? Here. So, it took a lot longer to describe this than actually takes doing it. That's the thing. And the things I showed you are all available to my players in the game so that they know how to do this. So they have that sheet to look through it and say, well, let's see. Let's go back to that sheet. See if we can get that up. Not that one. This one. So on this sheet, you have this huge list. You have this huge list of options for all kinds of characters that you can create. You know, there's one in the center there called Conan the Pirate from the Western Oceans. A galley slave. Maybe you're an escaped slave, or maybe you are a slave, and somehow you're in an adventure. Or you're a mariner, just a sailor. Merchant captain. Maybe you're a captain of a ship that's doing trade, or a smuggler. And then you have these other types of castes. Maybe you're a corsair, which is a certain type of pirate that's raiding other ships. Or just a fisher. You made your life fishing, but you've learned a lot about the sea. And so there's these different flavors that you can add in to who your character is. And no matter where you're from in the world, you can always use, up there at the top where it says the main core rule book, you could always be a pirate, scholar, scoundrel, witch, shaman, whatever you want. Call your name whatever you want. You bring in, on the character sheet, certain ability scores, certain skills, certain weapons, certain saving throws, and you're just you got the basics of your character, and now you're just giving it flavor on what kind of character you want. You want a witch? Call yourself a witch. You still got ability scores, saving throws, skills, and weapons, and different features that you put into, different feats that you put into your character to give you that feeling of a witch. That's all it takes. And then you start playing your character and you start making rolls. It's super quick and easy. And when it comes time to make an attack, you either do a spell or a weapon attack, push the button, get the results, move on. And when it comes time to do a skill check, you just click on that skill. There's nothing more you have to, it's not more complicated than that. You just click on your skill, get the result, and move on. And so that's the beauty of taking these streamlined mechanics from D&D 5e, these backstories from a barbaric fantasy genre system, combining them into a system that can actually work in Roll20 so that you have character sheets that are easily obtainable, easily you're able to click and customize in any way you need to, and they're quick and easy and fast, and then it becomes play is so much more fun when you've got everything efficiently organized. It's just clicks of buttons. You can easily resolve things. And I'm going to be doing future workshops here to show you how to actually work these things on Roll20. Let me go down to the end here. So this right here, when you're doing character creation, this is sort of the list. So my players would actually have this list. My players would actually go through this process. They've chosen the players have chosen the class, the level, the homeland talent, cast talent, war stories, education, everything. Even down to if they want a god. If they want a god in their life, okay, there's gods all over the place. We have one player right now who wants to get into this barbaric world as a Viking, as a shield maiden Viking, and wants to use gods from the Nordic world. No problem. Yeah, it's the world of Conan, and they didn't have gods of that nature. But what's the problem of just bringing in another god and saying the culture up there where the shield maiden is from uses that god? Not a problem. Bring it in, play it out. So that takes a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom to develop your characters the way you want to, and the world has to accept you on what you want to do with your character. Pick an area, pick a homeland, and it'll take you in. And your god is just the name. Just change the names, but the description of that god makes the god. The name doesn't make the god. It's the description of the god that makes the god. So call a god whatever you want, but that description might be similar to other gods that already exist in the story. That's all right. Pick whatever you name, pick your description, now you have your god, and you go forward with that. So you can see on this list that as you go through this little list, these are the steps you do to actually create a character. You first buy abilities and feats, and then you do certain adjustments for the strength and dexterity modifiers. And then you set your saving throws, set your speed, choose your skills. Then you adjust the expertise. This is a thing in the Roll20, part of the game system that I have. So you just adjust the expertise. Expertise is actually half of what it would be normally. So there's reasons for doing that. We'll talk about them now. So then you got class features. Put those in. Those are automatically placed in Roll20. And then you got some subclasses you can choose from. Add in your modifiers. Set your luck points. Choose your languages, kits, and crafts. Choose your weapons, armor, and equipment. What else? Transfer your hit points and reserve hit points over to the Roll20. Add your base attacks. I would do that for your characters. Set your spell points. Choose your spells. Done. That's how it works. So let's see. I don't see any questions in there, but I think I went over a lot here. So I wanted to give you a sense of everything that's available and why it is necessary to integrate different resources into character creation. D&D 5e has the best system for actually creating stats for a character. That's my opinion. If you have a different system you like better, use that system. But you still want to develop those characters into your system. And where do you find the best characters? You're not going to find the best character descriptions in D&D 5e. You're going to find them in other systems. I find them in the Conan system. Incredibly comprehensive. Incredibly useful to be able to go into those books and get the characters that you want out of there. And then, so once you combine those two resources, and then the spells that I've chosen for my particular game come from low fantasy gaming and from D&D 5e. I've combined spell lists to create a customized spell list for Barbaric Fantasy. And once you've integrated all these different resources into character creation, you now have a character that's going to function properly in a Barbaric Fantasy world. They're not going to be a character built for high fantasy. They're not going to be a character built for a world without any magic. They're going to be a character built for that magic level and that rough and tough blood and sweat feeling that you get in a Barbaric Fantasy. They're going to have their weapons. They're going to have their backstory. They're going to have their problems. They're going to have their challenges. And they're moving forward. They're going to have their personality. And they're going to fit. They're going to fit in the world and function properly because the character creation was done correctly. And the key to that is integrating these different resources to create perfect characters. So, that has been this workshop on character creation. I covered a lot of material, and always easy to cover the material again at a future time. But if anybody wants to be a player in my game, then get the Excel sheet, just put it right onto your computer, start filling it out. You get into the Roll20 game, and then there's links in the journal tabs there to actually download all the books that you would need. If you're interested in the Conan the Barbarian book, just download it to your computer. If you're interested in the Conan the Thief book, you just download it, but you have to be a player in one of my games to get that. And once you have the books and you've created your character, it's time to play. And then that's when the stories come out. And you've created a character now for Barbaric Fantasy, which means you're not going to be facing enemies. You're not going to be facing these bad, evil types with crazy magic like you would find in D&D 5e. You're not going to be facing enemies like that. The enemies are also toned down to certain levels of magic and certain levels of power and finesse and the ability to fight according to the Barbaric Fantasy. So everybody, even the NPCs and the monsters, all fit into the world with their own particular stats and their own particular limitations that you would share with them. Now, if you find a big bad with crazy types of magic, it's still the same type of magic that your character would have access to. But if that big bad has more, it's just at a different level, a higher level, and has more access to more types of spells. So this is how it works in Barbaric Fantasy, is you're creating a different environment, you're creating a different genre, you're creating a different style of play that's grittier, less magic, more barbaric, more involved with people living on the earth. That every day they have to wake up, put on their sandals, and walk. And deal with the earth as they see it. Think about the barbaric world, is that you're on a boat, and you're traveling up the coastline, and you can go miles and miles and miles and miles and just see jungle on the coast. You don't see anything. You don't see people, you don't see boats, you don't see cities, you don't see buildings, you just see jungle. And then all of a sudden you come to the town and you're not expecting, maybe you're expecting to see this huge city, and it might just be a few buildings with a couple of people there, with a couple of people living off in the forest or the jungle. That's kind of the world it was. And then when you come to the big cities, now you're going to see, you don't see tall skyscrapers, you'll see towers. But most of the buildings are going to be 1-2 story. And that's the type of world this is. It's not these huge, fantastic castles and palaces that seem to build upon everywhere and go up really high. These are barbaric places with mystery and power, simplicity, and a certain level of population that fits the world. But there's riches wherever you go. Even out in the middle of Australia, you can be walking along in the desert and all of a sudden see a big chunk of gold the size of your fist. There's riches wherever you go. Even when there's nobody there, you can still find it. It's that idea that you start traveling through these jungles and these forests, there are riches out there that you can find. Okay, so this is the idea. It's creating a character for barbaric fantasy. And I've shown you how to do that. And that's the whole idea. Now, the ultimate goal of barbaric fantasy is that after you've played, you get a sense that you want to go look at the full moon outside, or you want to go out and look at the stars, or you want to go out and see the leaves coming out on the trees in the springtime. You get that feeling that you're back in nature, and you're back into what life really is. D&D 5e, after a lot of people play D&D 5e, it's like they get into this virtual world that's a little too high fantasy, and they disconnect from the world we actually live in. And it's not like you get this feeling like you want to go outside and look at the moon, or you want to go outside and walk barefoot in the grass. It's like you want to watch something on TV or something like that. But after the ultimate goal of barbaric fantasy is you come together, you play a game, and you really get a sense for that awe and wonder of the natural world, of what it feels like to walk through a jungle, what it feels like to climb a mountain, what it feels like to wade through a stream, what it feels like to actually be pushing plants to the side as you're walking through there. And that feel of when a snake comes around you and grabs you, that slimy, scaly feel of what that snake feels like as it's trying to wrap itself around you. And you feel that texture of its skin, and you're feeling that and imagining that. That's a real feeling. And then it gets you to bond more with the natural world. So that these games actually take you back to a time when the natural world, the wilderness, was so powerful, so mysterious, so quiet. There were no planes overhead. The silence in the forest at night was intense. No one was playing radios. No cars going on roads nearby. Back then, you walked across the world and there was silence. Maybe you only heard the wind blowing through the trees, a couple of birds. And you get a sense for what it's like to return back to that pristine wilderness, the natural world, and survive in it, and find riches and glory through these barbaric fantasy type stories. So I'm taking time out here to really describe and differentiate what barbaric fantasy can give in relation to D&D 5e, and the benefits and the advantages to barbaric fantasy is that it really does, barbaric fantasy really does create a whole different sense of what the experience is. And so it takes that tweaking of integrating different resources. Okay, I think we're done here. My name is Wisdom Hunter, and we're into this barbaric fantasy project, trying to give out a lot of information right now. And we're getting ready to start a game within the next 2 weeks. We might have a player or two already, but we're still looking for more players. If anybody out there has friends, invite them in, and we'll start working up a game. We just need to get started on a game, create some characters, start playing, start developing a world, and living in this world. All right, I think we're done. All right, just waiting to see if there's any other comments. I think we're ready to go. So this has been a workshop from Barbaric Fantasy RPG for character creation, talking about different ways to do character creation and the way I do it to create characters for Barbaric Fantasy. My name is Wisdom Hunter, and remember, whoever has the most fun wins. That's how it plays.